Alright, so today I'm going to show you my aquaponics system that I built for, I don't know, somewhere between $50 and $60 depending on how you want to do it. Um, I think the most expensive part was these grow lights, which are optional. You know, I have a westerly facing garage, so it really only gets sunlight sometime like in the late evening. Not really enough to grow veggies, but through this small setup, you can probably grow, I would say, 50 heads of lettuce per year, roughly, if you have it fully operational. Right now, this thing is still cycling, which I'll explain here in a second. And I've only set up about maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, so it has not completed the nitrogen cycle. So essentially the way that an aquaponic system works, it's really like a hydroponic system, but instead of using synthetic nutrients, you are using fish waste, or to really fish fertilizer, which gets converted into different nutrients, mainly nitrogen, to grow any type of leafy greens. Doesn't really work as well with like tomatoes and stuff that need like, you know, calcium or sulfur or things like that. This is primarily nitrogen coming out of here. So your spinaches are good, you know, bok choy, really any type of leafy greens. I'm just going to be growing lettuce out of here. So this here was a test system that I built. I eventually want to build a 250 gallon IBC tote system outdoors, and then I would be able to actually grow bigger fish like tilapia, and I can actually eat the fish. Here I have some goldfish in there, which you can probably see, but let me break it down and kind of show you how I did it. So first things first, I got some cinder blocks, probably like 12 of them, because this is a gravity fed system. It flows down this way basically, and I have a pump bringing it back up, which are I would say $1.50 for each cinder block. This Rubbermaid bin here was $15. This one was $5, and this one I think was $10. Basically the way that it works is I cut a 2-inch hole through the side of it here, and I put, ideally what you want to do is you want to get a bulkhead fitting that will really seal it off so that you don't get drips coming out of the side here. They're like 15 bucks. They're kind of hard to find, so what I did instead was I went to Lowe's and I got a male and a female PVC connector, and then I put a little rubber seal here, this little, you know, gasket O-ring thing. It stopped most of the leaking, but it didn't really, you know, the hole saw that I used was 2 inches, but there's, you know, a conversion from inner diameter to outer diameter. So when you're dealing with PVC, I believe PVC is measured in inner diameter. The hole saw was outer diameter, so they didn't quite fit perfectly. So what I had to do is I took that little circular piece of this that I cut out, I melted it down, turned this upside down, and I just dripped, you know, melted plastic, and it seems to be holding pretty well. I mean, maybe one drop comes out every few minutes or so, but for the most part, it's really not leaking. And I didn't glue any of these pieces together either. You know, all this still comes apart, and I don't really see any leaks happening. So then what I did was I put a 2-inch cap over the PVC to make sure that the fish don't, you know, kind of swim into my filter, but it still allows, you know, semi-large particulates like fish food or stuff like that. So basically, I connected this piece here. I took this one because I wanted to make kind of like a Venturi system. I don't really know if it's working, but the theory goes, as water is flowing down this way, it's actually sucking air in through this pipe here, and oxygenating the water a little bit better. Who knows? From there, I took a 2-foot, 1.5 inch diameter PVC. I bent it over my stove, so it's not very pretty. You can just heat it up and bend it. There's a million ways to do it. The way that I did it is really not, I wouldn't recommend using your stove. Ideally what you'd want is you'd want a hose, and kind of wrap the hose around this way. I didn't have a hose, and I couldn't find a 2-inch diameter hose, so I took some PVC and I bent it. Then it goes into this 5-gallon bucket here. This is what's called a swirl filter. So the theory goes, if the water swirls around this way, the heavier particles should move off to the side, eventually sink to the bottom, and not just kind of overflow in. It doesn't really quite seem to be working all that well, maybe because my hose really isn't bent enough here. But what I did was I created a filter. This is a 3-inch PVC pipe that I just cut some slits into to not really allow big things in. If it does get clogged, the water will overflow into this one. This is another PVC pipe here with some slits cut into it, and then there's a hole at the bottom of this 5-gallon bucket here where the water then flows through the slits down into the next bucket. And just in case this one also gets clogged, so if both of these get clogged, then it'll just overflow in here and I won't have a big mess. I want to design it that way because this bucket is the smallest container really in this whole system. And if anything were to overflow, it would be this thing. I just designed it that way. So there's a hole at the bottom of this, 2 pieces of PVC with some holes cut into it to act as a filter. And then eventually the water flows down into here. And so what this is I have some bio balls in here. You can really use anything. I have like some crushed up seashells that I have found at the beach. Anything that, so I have some nylon in here. Anything that will allow the bacteria to colonize inside of it. And you'll notice that this bucket is higher than the drain. And the reason is because I don't want the water flowing out off the top here. The water actually goes through another hole in this bucket that I drilled through another piece of nylon. And you can see here, any physical, like this stuff, either blows in. There's actually some mosquito eggs in here, stuff like that. I don't want all this stuff getting into my pump because the pump is the most expensive part. So you don't want the pump really getting clogged. Again, I have another piece of nylon here in this pipe. Again, it's a 2-inch hole with a male and female connector and a little, O-ring thing there. This then feeds into my sump bucket. And this here is a raft. It's a piece of styrofoam. It comes in those kind of grow plugs. You go to your local hydroponics shop. They have a million of these left over for free, or you can buy them for $10, with the plugs in them. I had some rock wool, so I put some seeds in the rock wool. But you can really just cut a piece of styrofoam out if you want. So this is a raft system. This is not a, I don't have clay balls or anything like that. This is mainly made to float veggies on top of it, and all of these are going to have styrofoam with veggies floating on it. So once the water then gets in here, it goes into that pump there, and I lifted this hose here just to kind of aerate the water a little bit more, and so it kind of falls in. And the fish that I'm using here are some feeder fish. You get them for 25 cents a piece at your local aquarium, and they're really the engine for this whole system because they're producing the waste that eventually gets converted into nutrition. And then this here, I'll show off this light so you can see it a little better, are some microgreens that I'm just kind of experimenting with to see if they work. They actually seem to be coming along pretty well so far. But this tank is not yet ready. It does not have the nitrogen to handle a large sum of veggies, so I have not yet really kind of put my main crop in here. So that's pretty much it. I think the last piece here is this little bubbler. I got it for like $7 in Walmart, and this is just some air stones in here. And the reason is because I don't know if you can see the roots. These roots do not like to just be sitting in water. All right, you want to really oxygenate the water as much as possible because roots do need to breathe. Otherwise, they will rot. So I will let you know if this whole setup works or if it's a big failure. So lastly, I'll show you how I feed these goldfish for free, or at least I will be shortly. So first and foremost, here is duckweed. This stuff you can get in a aquarium store for relatively cheap. I think I paid maybe $3 for a handful of this stuff, and it replicates very fast. You just put a little bit of nutrients in the water, maybe like a little bit of compost or some liquid fertilizer if you want, and just leave it out in the sun, and it just will dominate that whole bucket in like a week. And goldfish, don't leave it in your goldfish tank because they'll just eat it all faster than they can replicate. And secondly, what I do is, so my gutter, where I don't have a gutter here, so my roof basically just kind of drips rainwater. I collect it in these buckets here, and mosquitoes come, they lay eggs in it, and I get little mosquito larvae, and probably one mosquito will lay like 200 eggs or something like that. And so number one, I'll have 200 less mosquitoes in my yard eating me, and number two, goldfish love mosquito larvae. So I just take the bucket, I dump it in my tank, and the goldfish go nuts for this stuff. So that's it. If you have any other questions, let me know.